This chapter looks at HTML and CSS from the code point of view. We'll write our own CSS and HTML and do a little testing and debugging along the way. This is another drastically improved area of Dreamweaver CS5. If you've never written either before, don't worry, we'll look at the code together. So we've taken a look at CSS and HTML so far in our design view, but we really haven't done anything with the code view. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So we're going to start by redefining our chapter. So I'll go to my Files panel, and I will click my Edit, and this is Chapter 9. And I'm going to go browse for that particular chapter now. And I'll say Save. And it's going to recreate that cache for me. Now I can say Done. So I have an About page right here, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. And if it's not already in your code view, if it's in Split or Design, go ahead and just go over to the code now. So we'll first take a look at the structure of our page. Now when we're looking at the HTML, we need to make sure that we have a doc type to start with. And then we've got an HTML and head and then a body. But we also need a link as well. So there must be a doc type, your root is your HTML, and the structure must include your head, title, and a body. Now all the elements in my body must also nest properly and be lowercase. So my body tag, and then everything is then nested properly inside of my page. I don't have my body on the outside of my HTML, for instance, so everything is nested properly. So before we can actually start writing some code, let's go ahead and take a look at our code view over on the left-hand side. So for instance, I've got a place to see any open documents, and I only have one open right now, so I don't have more than one to be able to select. I'm able to show my code navigator wherever I happen to be selected in here. If I show my code navigator, then I see the CSS that goes along with my cascade, so whatever is above that in my page. So I see that my container is 1,000 pixels, and my body tag has my font size, margin 0, padding 0, etc. Notice that you can also disable this feature so that it isn't popping up all the time, and then you would have to use your keyboard shortcut to be able to see that. So then we have a few buttons that allow us to collapse our tags. Move down just a little bit here. My very first button over here on the side allows me to collapse a full tag. So I have to be in either the beginning or the end of that tag for it to collapse that tag. So you might be asking yourself, well, why would I need to collapse a tag? Well, honestly, if I've got a table or if I've got some JavaScript or something in my code where I don't necessarily need to see it, I'm not going to change it, everything's fine with it, and I need to be able to see more of my page at a time, then it is very helpful to collapse your code so you just aren't seeing it. And on my Mac, I'm going to see a little bit of a different arrow here than I would have on the PC, but I can quickly and easily just kind of go back and forth and collapse and uncollapse that. I also have the ability to expand all from here, so maybe I've got several and I can just expand all at the same time. Now if I just grab some code, some random code here, and my next button down is my collapse selection. So it doesn't matter what I have selected, it will just go ahead and collapse that whole thing. Now the next one is really my favorite over on the side. I use this constantly because we are rating in divs. Then when I go down to the bottom of my page, I notice that I've got close div, close div, close div, and what the heck am I going to do with that, right? So if I put my cursor at the very end and then I click my select parent tag, then I'm going to be able to select the parent, and I can then see my structure a whole lot easier. Do I have enough closing divs? Do I have too many? And that is going to be able to help you figure that out very, very easily. Now, my next one down is my balance braces. Now, what it does, it selects the content and surrounding parentheses, braces, or square brackets of the line in which you place the insertion point. If you repeatedly click the button, then your surrounding symbols are balanced, and Dreamweaver actually selects the outermost braces inside of the document. So to be able to see that, I need some parentheses or some brackets, which I don't seem to have on this page. But strangely enough, my CSS does have braces. So I'm going to open styles.css, and if I put my cursor in anything that has a brace to it, I need to be inside, not on a comment, and I balance braces, then it will go ahead and select the content that's inside of that braces. So let's go back over to the about.html tab. Now the next several down are ones that I couldn't live without. So first off, we've got our line numbers. So I want to be able to see my line numbers in case somebody says, hey, there's a problem with line 120, and then I'll need to be able to see what that is. I can highlight invalid code. So if there is something missing in a part of my code, then it will highlight it in yellow so that I know that I have some invalid code. I have a word wrap. And my word wrap, I couldn't really live without it either. That way I don't have to scroll back and forth to be able to find my code easily. And then I've got my syntax errors. Now this enables an information bar at the top of the page that alerts me to syntax errors, but I'm not going to see it unless there is a problem. So as long as it's selected, then if I do have a problem with my syntax, the way I'm typing my code, then it will go ahead and pop up. So because of my resolution, I can't see probably all that you can, so I'm going to show more. Now here are my apply comments. So I couldn't really live without this either. So when I apply my comments, I've got several different types. The very first one is my HTML comment. So you can see right here where I have ended the header section, that is my HTML comment. So I have an exclamation point, 2 hyphens, and it ends with 2 hyphens. So then I have my comments next, that's for CSS or JavaScript. Let me go back over to my CSS here. And that's going to allow me to make several lines if I need to. So you notice here there's 3 lines of comments, and that's easy enough to do with the beginning and ending of those comments. So let's go back over to our regular code, and we'll go back over here. And I also have 2 forward slashes. Now that works great with ActionScript where it's just 1 line of code, and JavaScript as well. My last type of comment down here is for Visual Basic code. And if I am working with ASP, .NET, PHP, Cold Fusion files, then I'm going to be able to apply a server comment, and that would be available if we had that as an option. At the moment, we don't. So if I have a comment, I can get rid of a comment. So if I didn't want this, for instance, I could come back here and then delete or remove that comment. I want to keep it, so I'm going to go back and apply that comment again. It makes it really easy to go back and forth and apply comments and get rid of comments. Back in the old days, Dreamweaver 2 and Dreamweaver 3, I worked late a lot, so I used comments to leave myself notes in the code for the next day so I'd remember where to stop. My next button over is wrapping my tag. So it's just going to wrap selected code with the selected tag from the quick tag editor. So for instance, if I had something that needed to be superscripted here, for instance, so if I highlight that and I choose that particular little button, then it wraps my tag with whatever I type in there. So if I needed that to be superscripted, then I can wrap the tag with that. And I'll just delete that out of there. Don't need that to be superscripted at the moment. So then I have recent snippets as well. So snippets are kind of an interesting thought, and I don't have any available here at the moment. So I'm going to click on that to get my snippets panel. So we take a look at this. So I've got some snippets for comments and some footer information, some brief text there, some form elements, a close button, text field auto clear, really handy because anywhere else in Dreamweaver that's harder to do. and I've got some drop-down menus, so numbers and years and things like that that I absolutely need on a regular basis I can have as a snippet. Anything that I create that I want to keep as a snippet, I can highlight and then drag into this panel, give it a name, and be able to access that snippet again. They're very handy. So I'm going to come back over here, and now we've got our move or convert CSS. So if I had an inline style, so for instance, I've got this little P tag right here. So if I said style, and then I gave it maybe a background, I gave it a color, and maybe I just gave it a color of red here, then that is an inline style. So that is going to take precedence over the rest of my page. If I click on my design view and look at that particular paragraph, now that paragraph is red, and that was our color that we chose. So if I go back over to my code and I take a look at that style, and I come back over here and I can say convert that inline style to a rule. And is it going to be in that particular style sheet? I'm going to convert that to a new selector. What is that going to be? And then I can click OK. One thing I probably don't want to do with that is put it inside of this particular document inside of my head tags. And we talked about our order of things before and what we really would prefer, best practices. Just because you can, do you really need to add that, to the head? Or does it really need to be on the page itself and have that be part of the cascade? So I'm going to cancel out of that and delete my crazy inline style there. And we'll go back over here and take a look at what else we can do. So I can indent my code and I can outdent my code here. And my favorite, which is especially after I've been writing code for a long time, nothing is probably in order. I have too many things that aren't indented properly. So this takes what we put into our preferences and it makes it look exactly like we were meaning to. So for instance, that is indented because it's inside of my div. And if I take a couple of those out and I come back over here and tell it to apply source formatting, then when I scroll back down, it's indented properly again. So next we'll actually look at writing some HTML ourselves, now that we know how to work within the code.